Jake Morrison stood at the entrance of the massive alien ship called Nexus Prime. His hands were sweating inside his dress uniform gloves. This was the biggest moment in human history, and he felt like throwing up. The corridor stretched ahead of him like a tunnel made of silver metal and glowing blue lights. Everything looked so clean and perfect that Jake was afraid to touch anything. He had been chosen to represent all of humanity at the first Galactic Council meeting that included Earth. The other species had been part of this council for thousands of years. Humans were the new kids, and everyone was watching to see if they belonged here. The corridor was filled with aliens of all shapes and sizes. Some looked like giant lizards walking on two legs. Others were tall and thin with skin that seemed to shimmer like water. There were beings that looked like they were made of pure light, floating a few inches off the ground. Jake tried not to stare, but it was impossible not to look. A small robot with 4 arms rolled up to him. "Ambassador Morrison, please follow the blue line to the main chamber," it said in perfect English. Jake nodded and started walking, keeping his eyes on the glowing blue stripe that ran along the floor. The main chamber was enormous. The ceiling was so high that Jake could barely see it. In the center of the room sat a huge circular table with chairs of different sizes and shapes. Each chair was designed for a different alien species. Jake's chair looked tiny compared to some of the others. As he walked toward his seat, Jake noticed a beautiful crystal display near the Zephyrian section. The crystals were arranged in a complex pattern and glowed with soft purple light. They were absolutely stunning, and Jake found himself moving closer to get a better look. That was his first mistake. Jake did not see the small step that led up to the display area. His foot caught the edge, and he stumbled forward. His shoulder hit the display stand, and the whole thing wobbled dangerously. Jake tried to catch it, but that only made things worse. The beautiful crystal arrangement crashed to the floor with a sound like breaking glass, mixed with wind chimes. The entire chamber fell silent. Every alien eye in the room turned to look at Jake. He felt his face turn red as he knelt down and tried to pick up the broken pieces. "I am so sorry," he said. "I did not see the step. I can pay for this. I will replace it somehow." A tall Zephyrian with skin like moving water glided over to him. The alien's voice sounded like music, but Jake could hear the anger underneath. That display was 3,000 years old. It was created by our greatest artists and blessed by our spiritual leaders. It cannot be replaced. Jake wanted to disappear. He had been on the ship for less than 10 minutes, and he had already destroyed a priceless alien artifact. "I am truly sorry," he said again. "It was an accident." From across the room, a voice like grinding stone spoke up. "An accident? How typical." The speaker was Vexstar, leader of the Acrylian Empire. He looked like a giant lizard that had learned to walk upright and wear clothes. His yellow eyes stared at Jake with obvious disgust. "This is exactly what we expected from humans," other aliens began to whisper among themselves. Jake caught words like clumsy and primitive and dangerous. He tried to stand with dignity, but he was still holding pieces of broken crystal in his hands. Council leader Morduk called for order. He was from a species that looked like walking trees with too many arms. "Please take your seats. We have much to discuss today." Jake made his way to his chair, trying not to trip over anything else. The other humans in his delegation looked embarrassed and worried. They had worked for years to get humanity invited to join the Galactic Council, and now their ambassador had broken something important in the first 10 minutes. The meeting began with formal introductions. Each species had a chance to speak about their role in the galaxy and their contributions to galactic peace. When it was Jake's turn, he stood up carefully and spoke about humanity's desire to join the galactic community and learn from other species. But Jake could tell that nobody was really listening to his words. They were all thinking about the broken crystals. Every time he moved, aliens nearby seemed to tense up, as if they expected him to break something else. The real trouble started when the discussion turned to the Galactic Defense Force. This was a military organization made up of soldiers from all the member species. They worked together to protect the galaxy from threats that were too big for any one species to handle alone. "Humans have requested to join our defense force," announced Morduk. "We must decide what roles they would be suitable for." Vexstar was the first to speak. "I think we have already seen enough to make that decision. Humans are too clumsy for military service. They cannot be trusted with advanced weapons or precision equipment." A representative from the ethereal collective agreed. "These beings were made of pure energy and could control matter with their thoughts. We have observed human behavior during their basic training simulations. They have far too many accidents. Their motor control is insufficient for advanced warfare." The insectoid hive mind nexus spoke through their representative, a creature that looked like a giant praying mantis. "While we respect human determination and courage, we must question whether they possess the physical capabilities needed for precise military operations." Jake felt his anger rising, but he tried to keep his voice calm. "Humans have a long military history. We have fought wars for thousands of years. We know how to adapt and overcome challenges." "Adapt?" Vexstar's laugh sounded like rocks grinding together. "You cannot even adapt to walking through our ship without destroying things. How can you adapt to battlefield conditions?" More aliens began to speak up, all expressing similar concerns. They had heard stories about human clumsiness during training exercises. Humans dropping equipment, bumping into walls, tripping over their own feet. To the aliens who had evolved different forms of grace and precision, humans seemed like accidents waiting to happen. The ethereal collective representative spoke again. "We cannot allow such unstable creatures access to advanced weaponry. The risk to other species would be too great." Jake tried again to defend humanity. "We may not be as graceful as other species, but we make up for it with determination and creativity. Humans excel at finding solutions when things go wrong." "Things go wrong around humans because humans make them go wrong," said Vexstar. "We have seen enough evidence of this." The debate continued for another hour, but Jake could see that his words were not changing any minds. The other species had made up their minds about humans based on a few training accidents and his own crystal-breaking incident. Finally, Morduk called for a vote. "All in favor of restricting human participation in the defense force to support roles only?" Most of the alien hands, claws, and tentacles went up. Motion passed. "Humans will be allowed to serve in logistics, maintenance, and administrative positions only. They will not be permitted to serve in any role requiring precision or fine motor skills." Jake felt like he had been punched in the stomach. This was not what humanity had hoped for when they applied to join the galactic community. They wanted to be partners, not just the species that carried supplies and fixed broken equipment. As the meeting ended, Jake noticed something that gave him a small bit of hope. Sitting quietly in the back of the human delegation was Staff Sergeant Lisa Carter. She had not said a word during the entire meeting, but Jake had seen her watching the aliens carefully. There was something in her eyes that suggested she was not impressed by their attitude toward humans. Lisa had been included in the delegation because of her military expertise, but the aliens had not bothered to ask about her background. If they had, they might have learned some interesting facts about human precision and capability. But for now, she remained silent, observing and waiting. Jake had a feeling that the galaxy had not seen the last of human surprises. 3 weeks had passed since Jake Morrison broke the crystal display. The story had spread throughout the galaxy like wildfire. Every species knew about the clumsy human who destroyed a priceless artifact on his first day. Jake tried to focus on his work, but he could feel alien eyes watching him wherever he went. The human delegation had set up offices on the lower levels of Nexus Prime. Jake spent his days in meetings, trying to build relationships with other species. But every conversation seemed to come back to the same thing. Humans were seen as dangerous because they were accident-prone. Lisa Carter had been assigned a small office next to Jake's. She spent most of her time reading reports about Galactic military operations and studying alien weapons technology. Unlike Jake, she seemed perfectly comfortable on the alien station. She never bumped into walls or knocked over equipment. Her movements were always precise and controlled, but the aliens never noticed this. They saw her uniform and assumed she was just another clumsy human soldier. Lisa did not seem to mind. She went about her work quietly, watching and learning. On a Tuesday morning, everything changed. Jake was in his office reviewing trade agreements when alarms started blaring throughout the station. The lights changed from their normal blue to a pulsing red. An announcement came over the communication system in multiple alien languages. Jake could not understand most of it, but he recognized the tone. This was serious. Lisa appeared in his doorway within seconds. "Something big is happening," she said. "We need to get to the main chamber." They hurried through the corridors following streams of aliens, all heading in the same direction. The atmosphere on the station had changed completely. The usual calm conversations were replaced by urgent whispers and worried looks. In the main chamber, Council Leader Morduck was standing at a massive display screen. The screen showed a star map with red dots moving slowly toward the center. Each red dot represented a spaceship, and there were hundreds of them. "Long-range sensors have detected an unknown fleet approaching our outer territories," Morduck announced. "The ships do not match any known design in our databases. They are traveling in formation and ignoring all attempts at communication." Vextar of the Krillian Empire stood up. His usual arrogant manner was replaced by obvious concern. "How many ships are we looking at?" "Over 300 vessels of various sizes," replied Morduck. "The largest ships are bigger than anything in our combined fleets. They will reach the outer colonies in less than 48 hours. A representative from the Zephyrian delegation raised a shimmering hand. "Have we tried all standard greeting protocols? Perhaps they simply do not understand our languages." "We have broadcast in over 2,000 languages and mathematical sequences," said Morduck. "They continue to ignore us. However, we did receive one transmission from them about an hour ago." The screen changed to show a recording. The image was dark and grainy, but Jake could make out a figure standing in what looked like the bridge of a spaceship. The being was tall and thin, with skin that looked like black metal. Red lights glowed where eyes should be, and its voice was like the sound of metal scraping against stone. "I am Commander Zaxthel of the Void Reaper Fleet," the figure said. "We have traveled across many galaxies, seeking worthy opponents. Your civilization has caught our attention. We challenge you according to the ancient laws of combat." The recording continued, and Jake felt his blood turn cold as he listened to the terms of the challenge. "We follow the old ways," Zaxthel continued. "The strongest warrior from your side will face our champion in single combat. The contest will be one of precision and skill, not brute strength. A test of marksmanship at long range with energy. Weapons." The alien commander paused, and his red eyes seemed to stare directly through the screen. "The rules are simple. Both warriors will attempt to hit a series of targets placed in deep space. The contest continues until one warrior misses. The losing civilization will surrender all their territory and people to the victors." The recording ended, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Jake looked around at the alien faces and saw fear in every one of them. These were species that had mastered space travel and energy manipulation, but they were terrified of this challenge. Morduck spoke first. "We have less than 2 days to prepare. Each species must nominate their best marksman for consideration." The discussion that followed was chaotic. Each alien species began explaining why they could not possibly provide a suitable champion for this type of contest. The Krillian representative stood up. Despite their reputation as fierce warriors, Vextar looked worried. "Our people are skilled in close combat with blade weapons. We have never developed long-range precision shooting. Our reflexes are designed for face-to-face battles." The Zephyrian delegate agreed. "Our species uses energy manipulation and mental powers to fight. We do not rely on physical weapons or projectile accuracy. This type of contest is completely outside our experience." The ethereal collective representative floated forward. "We have evolved beyond the need for physical marksmanship. We control matter with our minds, not with crude mechanical devices. We cannot participate in such a primitive contest. One by one, each species explained why they were not suitable for the challenge. The insectoid hive mind had excellent coordination, but they worked as a group consciousness. The plant-like sylvans were peaceful and had no military traditions at all. The aquatic deepers could not function in the zero-gravity environment where the contest would take place. Jake watched Lisa. During all of this, she sat quietly in her chair, her face showing no emotion. But he could see her eyes moving as she calculated something in her head. She was studying the challenge like a puzzle to be solved. The debate went on for hours. Different species tried to form alliances, hoping to combine their abilities somehow. But Commander Zachville had been very clear in his message. No technological assistance would be allowed, no group efforts, no artificial enhancements. Just one warrior with one weapon, shooting at targets in the cold vacuum of space. As panic began to set in, more details about the Void Reapers emerged from the Council's databases. They were a nomadic warrior race that had been conquering civilizations for over 1,000 years. They never settled on planets or built permanent homes. Instead, they traveled from galaxy to galaxy, seeking out advanced civilizations to challenge. The Void Reapers followed an ancient code of honor that required them to offer single combat before attacking. But they had never lost one of these contests. Their champion, a warrior called Scareth the Deathmark, had been undefeated for over 200 years. Scareth has competed in over 50 of these marksmanship contests, reported the Council's military advisor. He has never missed a single target. His species evolved on a planet with extreme gravitational conditions, giving them natural advantages in spatial awareness and trajectory calculation. The news got worse as more information came in. The Void Reapers had destroyed dozens of civilizations. Some had tried to run, but the Reaper ships were faster than anything else in known space. Others had attempted to fight directly, but the Void Reaper technology was too advanced. The only option was to accept the challenge and hope for a miracle. By evening, the Council was in complete chaos. Representatives were arguing with each other, pointing fingers and making accusations. Some species wanted to evacuate their home worlds. Others suggested trying to negotiate different terms for the contest, but Commander Zachville had made it clear that the terms were not negotiable. The contest would take place in exactly 36 hours. The location would be the Kepler asteroid field, a chaotic region of space filled with floating rocks and unpredictable gravitational forces. The targets would be crystalline structures, each no larger than a human fist. They would be positioned at distances of up to 50 kilometers apart. The contest would take place in zero gravity with no atmospheric conditions to help guide the shots. Jake looked around the chamber at the panicking aliens. These were species that had mastered faster-than-light travel and energy manipulation, but none of them had ever needed to develop the simple skill of accurate shooting. They had relied on advanced technology and natural abilities instead of basic marksmanship. For the first time since arriving at the Council, Jake began to think that maybe humans had something to offer after all. He glanced at Lisa, who was still sitting quietly in her corner. She had been listening to everything, but she had not said a single word. As the meeting finally ended with no solution in sight, Lisa stood up and walked over to Jake. "I need to make a phone call," she said simply. Jake did not understand what she meant, but something in her voice made him feel hopeful for the first time in hours. Maybe the galaxy was about to learn something new about human capabilities. The emergency council meeting had been going on for 18 hours straight. Jake Morrison looked around the chamber and saw exhaustion and fear on every alien face. Time was running out, and nobody had found a solution to the Void Reaper challenge. Different species kept suggesting the same failed ideas. The Krillians wanted to modify their weapons to be more accurate, but the Void Reapers had forbidden any technological improvements. The Ethereal Collective proposed using mental powers to guide shots, but that was also against the rules. Every suggestion was met with the same problem. The contest had to be won with pure shooting skill. Jake had been watching Lisa Carter throughout the long meeting. While other humans in the delegation looked worried and scared, Lisa remained calm. She sat in her chair with perfect posture, occasionally taking notes but never speaking. Her eyes moved constantly, studying the alien representatives and listening to every word about the challenge. As the meeting entered its 19th hour, Morduk called for another break. "We have 16 hours remaining," he announced. "If we cannot find a champion soon, we must begin evacuation procedures for the outer colonies." The aliens began to file out of the chamber, their conversations filled with despair. Jake was about to leave when Lisa touched his arm. "I need to speak to the council," she said quietly. Jake stared at her. "What do you mean?" "Request permission." "For me to address them?" Lisa said. "Tell them that humanity wants to make a proposal." Jake felt confused. "What kind of proposal?" "We already know that humans are not welcome in combat roles. They made that very clear 3 weeks ago." Lisa's expression did not change. "Just ask them, Jake. Trust me." Something in her voice made Jake nod. He had learned to trust Lisa's judgment during their time on the station. While he stumbled through diplomatic conversations, she always seemed to understand exactly what was happening around them. When the meeting resumed, Jake stood up and requested permission to speak. The alien representatives looked annoyed. They were running out of time and did not want to hear more useless suggestions. Morduk sighed. "Very well, Ambassador Morrison. But please be brief." Jake cleared his throat. "The human delegation would like to offer a champion for the marksmanship contest." The chamber fell completely silent. Then Vexstar began to laugh. His grinding stone laugh was joined by chuckles and whispers from other species. The laughter grew louder until it filled the entire chamber. "This is not the time for jokes," said Vexstar. "We are facing extinction, and you want to send your clumsy species to save us? Have you forgotten the crystal display already?" The Zephyrian representative shimmered with what looked like amusement. "Ambassador Morrison, we appreciate your courage, but humans have already been evaluated. Your motor control problems make you unsuitable for precision work." Other aliens began speaking up, all expressing similar opinions. They reminded Jake about the training accidents, the broken equipment, and the general clumsiness that humans had shown during their time in the galaxy. The idea of a human champion was treated like a bad joke. Jake felt his face turning red. But before he could respond, Lisa stood up. She did not ask for permission to speak. She simply walked to the center of the chamber and waited for the laughter to die down. The change in the room was immediate. While Jake often seemed nervous and uncertain, Lisa moved with quiet confidence. Every step was precise and deliberate. She did not fidget or look around nervously like Jake often did. She simply stood there and waited. "My name is Staff Sergeant Lisa Carter," she said in a clear, steady voice. "I am a former United States Marine Corps sniper. I volunteer to be your champion." Vexstar's laughter became even louder. "A human sniper? This gets better and better. Tell us, Sergeant Carter, how many training accidents have you caused? How many pieces of equipment have you broken?" Lisa looked directly at Vexstar without any change in expression. "In 12 years of military service, I have completed 847 combat missions. I have made successful shots at distances up to 3.2 kilometers in Earth's atmosphere. I have hit targets as small as playing cards in wind, rain, snow, and sandstorms." The laughter began to fade as Lisa continued speaking. Her voice never changed tone, but there was something in the way she spoke that made the aliens listen. "I have never missed a target when lives depended on the shot," Lisa continued. "I have never had a training accident. I have never broken any equipment due to carelessness. I have 212 confirmed kills in combat situations." The chamber was now completely quiet. Jake could see that some of the alien representatives were beginning to look interested, but others still seemed skeptical. The insectoid hive mind representative clicked his mandibles together. "These are impressive claims, but we have observed human coordination problems during basic training exercises. How do you explain the discrepancy?" Lisa's expression remained calm. "Different humans have different abilities, just like different members of your species have different abilities. Some humans are clumsy, others are not. You have been judging all of humanity based on a few individuals. Vexstar was not convinced. Words are easy, human. Anyone can make claims about their abilities. Do you have any proof of these remarkable skills? Lisa nodded. I can demonstrate if you wish. Mordak looked interested for the first time in hours. What kind of demonstration? Your station has holographic training systems, Lisa said. I can show you what human marksmanship looks like when performed by someone who actually knows how to shoot. The council members looked at each other. They had nothing to lose by watching a demonstration, and they were desperate for any solution. Mordak activated the chamber's training system, and holographic targets began to appear throughout the room. A Krillian technician brought Lisa a standard council energy rifle. It was a weapon designed for alien hands with controls and balance that were completely different from human weapons. Lisa accepted the rifle and spent exactly 30 seconds examining it. She checked its weight, balance, and firing mechanism with quick, efficient movements. The demonstration will consist of 12 targets at various distances and angles, announced the technician. Some targets will be moving, others will be partially hidden. Standard council accuracy requirements call for at least 8 hits out of 12 attempts. Lisa nodded and raised the rifle. Jake held his breath as she aimed at the first target, a glowing sphere about the size of a basketball floating near the ceiling. The energy blast hit the target dead center, and it disappeared in a flash of light. The second target was smaller and moving in a slow circle. Lisa tracked it for a moment, then fired. Another perfect hit by the fourth target, the alien whispers, had stopped completely. By the eighth target, every representative in the chamber was staring at Lisa with complete attention. She had not missed a single shot with a weapon she had never used before. The ninth target was partially hidden behind a pillar. Lisa would have to ricochet her shot off the chamber wall to hit it. This was considered an impossible shot even for experienced alien marksman. Lisa studied the angle for a few seconds, then fired. The energy beam bounced off the wall at exactly the right angle and struck the hidden target. The aliens gasped in amazement. The final 3 targets were the most difficult. They were small, fast-moving, and positioned at extreme angles. Lisa hit all 3 without any sign of effort or stress. When the demonstration ended, Lisa lowered the rifle and looked calmly at the council members. Any questions? The chamber was silent for a long moment. Finally, Vexstar spoke, but his arrogant tone was gone. How is this possible? We have observed human training exercises. We have seen the accidents and coordination problems. Lisa's answer was simple. You observed humans who were not trained for precision shooting. You observed diplomats, engineers, and general soldiers. You never asked if we had specialists. The ethereal collective representative floated forward. Your accuracy is remarkable, but the contest will take place in zero gravity with targets at distances up to 50 kilometers. The conditions will be far more challenging than this demonstration. I understand, Lisa replied. I have trained for shooting in all environmental conditions, including zero-gravity simulations. The distance will be challenging, but not impossible. Mordak looked around at the other council members. Do we have any other options? Nobody spoke. They all knew that Lisa was their only hope. Very well, said Mordak. Staff Sergeant Carter, on behalf of the Galactic Council, we accept your offer to serve as our champion. The fate of our civilization rests in your hands. Lisa nodded calmly. I understand the responsibility. I will not let you down. As the meeting ended, Jake felt a mixture of pride and terror. The galaxy would finally see what humans were really capable of, but if Lisa failed, billions of people would die. Everything depended on one human woman with a rifle. The Kepler asteroid field stretched out like a graveyard of broken planets. Chunks of rock floated in all directions, some as small as cars and others as big as mountains. The gravitational forces from nearby stars pulled the asteroids in different directions, creating a constantly changing maze of floating debris. Lisa Carter stood on a small platform that drifted slowly through the field. The platform was barely big enough for one person and provided only basic life support. There was no stabilization system, no artificial gravity, and no protection from the cosmic radiation that filled the area. She wore a standard spacesuit. With a clear helmet that let her see in all directions, in her hands was an energy rifle provided by a neutral species that had no stake in the contest. The weapon was basic but reliable, with simple controls and a scope that could zoom in on distant targets. Both Lisa and her opponent would use identical rifles to ensure fairness. 3 kilometers away, on another drifting platform, stood Scareth the Deathmark. Even at this distance, Lisa could see his tall, thin frame through her scope. His species, the Void Reapers, looked like humans crossed with machines. Black metal skin covered most of his body, and red lights glowed where his eyes should be. He had been undefeated in marksmanship contests for over 200 years. Around them, the combined fleets of the Galactic Council and the Void Reapers waited at a safe distance. Thousands of ships from dozens of species watched through long-range sensors as the two champions prepared to decide the fate of galactic civilization. Commander Zachthel's voice came through the communication system. The rules are simple. 10. Targets will appear one at a time throughout the asteroid field. Both warriors must hit each target before the next one appears. The contest continues until one warrior misses or all targets are destroyed. Lisa checked her rifle one more time. The weight was different from the weapons she was used to, but she had practiced with it during the journey to the asteroid field. The scope was clear, and the energy cell was fully charged. Everything was ready. First target appearing now, announced Zachthel. A crystalline structure materialized about 23 kilometers away, attached to a slowly rotating asteroid. The target was roughly the size of a dinner plate and glowed with a soft blue light. It seemed easy enough, but Lisa knew that the real challenge was the environment. In space, there was no air to slow down or redirect energy beams, but there were gravitational forces from the asteroids and distant stars that could pull shots off course. The platforms they stood on were also moving, adding another layer of complexity to each shot. Scareth fired first. His shot was perfectly calculated, accounting for the rotation of the asteroid and the gravitational interference from nearby rocks. The energy beam traveled in a straight line for most of its journey, then curved slightly as it passed close to a large asteroid. It struck the target dead center, causing it to explode in a shower of blue sparks. Lisa studied the field for a moment longer. She noticed things that Scareth's advanced calculations might have missed. A small asteroid was drifting between her position and the target, and its gravitational field would affect her shot differently than his. She also saw that her platform was moving at a slightly different angle, which would change the trajectory. Her shot curved around the small asteroid and struck her target with the same precision as Scareth's. The crystalline structure exploded, and the watching fleet saw 2 successful hits. Targets 2 appearing, said Zachthel. The second target was more challenging. It appeared 31 kilometers away, partially hidden behind a cluster of rotating asteroids. Both warriors would have to time their shots perfectly to thread the needle between the moving rocks. Again, Scareth fired first. His species' natural ability to calculate complex trajectories allowed him to predict exactly when the gap between asteroids would be large enough for his shot to pass through. The energy beam waited for the perfect moment, then slipped between 2 massive rocks and hit the target. Lisa approached the problem differently. Instead of trying to calculate the exact timing, she watched the pattern of the asteroid rotation and felt the rhythm of their movement. When the moment felt right, she fired. Her shot followed a different path than Scareth's. Taking advantage of a smaller gap that appeared for only a fraction of a second, both targets exploded simultaneously. The contest continued with increasing difficulty. Target 3 required shots to be fired through a narrow tunnel created by asteroids that had locked together in a strange formation. Target 4 was attached to an asteroid that spun end over end, making it nearly impossible to predict where it would be when the energy beam arrived. Target 5 was the most challenging yet. It sat in the middle of a gravitational storm where 3 large asteroids created conflicting forces that pulled objects in different directions. the target itself, was moving in an unpredictable pattern that changed every few seconds. Scareth took longer to calculate this shot. His red eyes glowed brighter as his internal computers worked to solve the complex equation. When he fired, his shot followed a curved path that compensated for most of the gravitational interference. But at the last moment, an unexpected shift in the asteroid positions pulled his energy beam slightly off course. It missed the target by less than a centimeter. The Void Reaper fleet fell silent. Their champion, who had never missed a shot in over 2 centuries, had finally failed, but the contest was not over yet. Lisa still had to make her shot, and the gravitational storm was getting worse. The 3 asteroids were moving closer together, increasing the chaotic forces in the area. Lisa studied the pattern for almost a full minute. She was not trying to calculate the gravitational forces like Scareth had done. Instead, she was looking for something else, something that her years of experience had taught her to recognize. Every chaotic system has hidden patterns. Wind gusts seem random, but they follow the shape of the landscape. Gravitational forces seem unpredictable, but they respond to the mass and movement of objects around them. Lisa had learned to see these patterns during thousands of shots in impossible conditions on Earth. She fired her shot at what seemed like the worst possible moment. The target was moving away from her, and the gravitational forces should have pulled her energy beam in the wrong direction. But Lisa had seen something that Scareth's calculations had missed. The 3 asteroids were not just creating chaos. They were creating a rhythm. Every 12 seconds, their combined gravitational fields lined up in a way that created a clear path through the storm. Lisa had timed her shot to ride that hidden current. Her energy beam curved and twisted through the gravitational maze, following a path that seemed impossible. It arrived at the target just as the hidden pattern reached its perfect moment, striking the crystalline structure with enough force to vaporize it completely. The watching fleets erupted in amazement. Even the Void Reapers seemed shocked by the impossible shot. Commander Zachthel's voice came through the communication system, but for the first time he sounded uncertain. Both warriors advanced to Target 6. This contest will continue. Target 6 appeared 47 kilometers away, hidden behind a field of debris that moved constantly. Target 7 required a ricochet shot off the polished surface of a metallic asteroid. Target 8 could only be hit during a brief moment when the gravitational forces aligned in a specific pattern. With each target, the difficulty increased, but both Lisa and Scareth continued to succeed. Scareth relied on his advanced technology and natural abilities, while Lisa used intuition and experience that had been developed through years of human warfare. The difference between their approaches became more obvious as the contest progressed. Scareth's shots were always perfectly calculated for predictable conditions. But when truly chaotic variables entered the equation, his technology could not account for every possibility. Lisa's approach was different. She had learned to work with chaos instead of fighting against it. Every impossible shot she had made on Earth had taught her to find order in randomness and to trust her instincts when calculations failed. As they prepared for Target 9, both warriors knew that the contest was reaching its climax. The next target would push them both to their absolute limits, and one of them would finally fail. The fate of billions of people hung in the balance, as 2 very different kinds of precision faced off in the cold vacuum of space. Target 9 appeared in the most impossible location yet. The crystalline structure was positioned at the center of a debris field where 7 different asteroids created overlapping gravitational forces. The target itself was no bigger than a human thumb and sat 49 kilometers away from both shooting platforms. Lisa Carter floated on her small platform, studying the chaotic movement of rocks and debris around the target. Every few seconds, chunks of stone and metal would drift across her line of sight, blocking any clear shot. The gravitational forces changed constantly as the asteroids moved in their complex dance around each other, 3 kilometers away. Scareth, the Deathmark, was also analyzing the situation. His red eyes glowed brighter as his internal computers worked to calculate every possible variable. For over 200 years, his technology had never failed him. But this target was pushing his abilities to their absolute limit. The silence stretched on as both warriors tried to find a solution to the impossible puzzle. The watching fleets waited nervously, knowing that the next few minutes would decide the fate of galactic civilization. Finally, Scarith made his decision. His calculations showed a brief window of opportunity in approximately 37 seconds when the gravitational forces would align in a way that might allow his shot to reach the target. It was not perfect, but it was the best chance his computers could find. He raised his rifle and waited for the exact moment. When the timer in his head reached 0, he fired. The energy beam followed the predicted path, curving around asteroids and riding gravitational currents toward the distant target. For a moment, it looked like the shot would succeed. The energy beam twisted through the debris field, avoiding obstacles and following the calculated trajectory. But at the last second, a small piece of debris shifted position due to an unpredictable gravitational eddy. The tiny rock was no bigger than a baseball, but it was enough to deflect Scarith's shot by just a few centimeters. The energy beam missed the target and struck an asteroid behind it. Scarith's first miss in over 2 centuries sent shockwaves through both fleets. On the Void Reaper command ship, Commander Zachthel stared at his screens in disbelief. His champion, the warrior who had never failed, had finally met his match. The commander's metal fingers gripped the armrests of his chair as he waited to see if the human could do what seemed impossible. Lisa had watched Scarith's shot with intense concentration. She saw how his perfectly calculated beam had been defeated by a single unpredictable variable. The lesson was clear. In truly chaotic conditions, perfect calculations were not enough. She needed to find a different approach. She closed her eyes for a moment and let her mind drift back to the most difficult shots she had ever made on Earth. There was the time she had hit a target during a sandstorm in Afghanistan, when the wind changed direction every few seconds. There was the shot she made during a thunderstorm in Colombia, when rain and lightning made visibility almost 0. In each case, she had succeeded not by calculating everything perfectly, but by feeling the rhythm of the chaos around her. Every chaotic system had patterns hidden deep within it. The trick was not to fight the chaos, but to become part of it. Lisa opened her eyes and studied the debris field again. This time, she was not looking for mathematical solutions. She was looking for the heartbeat of the gravitational storm, the hidden rhythm that connected all the moving pieces. She watched for 3 full minutes, letting her mind absorb the complex dance of asteroids and debris. Slowly, a pattern began to emerge. It was not something that could be calculated or predicted with computers. It was something that could only be felt by someone who had spent years learning to work with impossible conditions. Lisa raised her rifle and waited. She was not counting seconds or calculating trajectories. She was feeling for the perfect moment, when all the chaotic forces would align in just the right way. The moment came like a whisper in her mind. Without conscious thought, she pulled the trigger. Her energy beam launched into the debris field at what appeared to be the worst possible time. Asteroids were moving across her path, gravitational forces were pulling in different directions, and pieces of debris seemed to block every possible route to the target. But Lisa had felt something that no computer could calculate. Deep within the chaos, there was a moment of perfect harmony when all the forces would work together instead of against each other. Her shot rode that hidden current like a leaf floating down a stream. The energy beam curved and twisted through the gravitational maze, following a path that seemed to defy the laws of physics. It slipped between moving asteroids with centimeters to spare, rode gravitational waves that pulled it in exactly the right direction, and threaded through gaps that appeared for only fractions of a second. When the beam finally reached the target area, the tiny crystalline structure was exactly where it needed to be. The energy struck the thumb-sized target dead center, vaporizing it in a brilliant flash of light that could be seen clearly from both fleets. The silence that followed was absolute. On ships throughout both fleets, beings of dozens of different species stared at their screens in amazement. They had just witnessed a shot that should have been impossible, made by a member of a species they had considered clumsy and accident-prone. Commander Zachthel was the first to break the silence. His voice came through the communication system, but the arrogance was gone. In its place was something that sounded almost like respect. "The contest is concluded," he announced. "Staff Sergeant Lisa Carter of Earth is the victor. According to our ancient laws, the Void Reaper fleet acknowledges defeat and will withdraw from Council space." The Council fleets erupted in celebration. Ships throughout the Armada lit up with victory displays and broadcast messages of joy in hundreds of different languages. They had been saved by a human, a member of the species they had dismissed as too clumsy for military service. But Commander Zachthel was not finished speaking. "I request a private meeting with the human champion before we depart." An hour later, Lisa found herself aboard the Void Reaper command ship. The interior was dark and metallic, with red lights casting eerie shadows on the walls. Commander Zachthel waited for her in his private quarters, a room filled with weapons and trophies from 1,000 conquered worlds. "You have impressed me, human," Zachthel said. His red eyes studied Lisa with obvious curiosity. "In over 1,000 years of conquest, we have never encountered a warrior who could defeat our champion through pure skill alone," Lisa remained, calm under his gaze. "I was just doing my job." "Your job?" Zachthel laughed, a sound like metal grinding against stone. "You have saved billions of lives and preserved entire civilizations. This is far more than any job." The Void Reaper commander stood and walked to a wall covered with weapons. "I have an offer for you. Join our fleet as a war leader. We will provide you with the finest weapons in the galaxy and battles that will test your skills beyond anything you can imagine on Earth." Lisa shook her head. "Thank you, but I must decline. My loyalty is to Earth and humanity." Zachthel nodded as if he had expected this answer. "I understand, but tell me, are there others like you among your people?" "Many others," Lisa replied. "Earth has produced warriors with skills like mine throughout our entire history. We have been fighting wars for thousands of years, and we have learned to adapt to any situation." For the first time since meeting him, Lisa saw surprise on the alien commander's face. "Thousands of warriors with abilities like yours?" "At least, Lisa." "Confirmed. Maybe more. We never really counted." Zachthel was quiet for a long moment. "Perhaps we have been conquering the wrong galaxies," he said finally. "A species that can produce warriors like you might be worth allying with instead of fighting?" When Lisa returned to the Council fleet, she found the entire situation had changed. Jake Morrison met her at the docking bay with a huge smile on his face. "Lisa, you are not going to believe what has happened while you were gone." The Galactic Council had called an emergency session. One by one, each alien species had formally apologized to the human delegation for their earlier treatment. The restrictions on human military service had been completely removed, and humanity was being offered full membership in the Galactic Defense Force. Vextar of the Krillian Empire personally requested forgiveness for his insulting comments. "We were fools," he admitted. "We judged your entire species based on isolated incidents and our own prejudices. You have shown us that humans possess capabilities we never imagined." The other species echoed similar sentiments. They had assumed that advanced technology and natural evolution were the only paths to military excellence. Lisa had proven that experience, adaptability, and intuition were equally valuable. Over the following weeks, representatives from dozens of alien species requested permission to visit Earth and study human military training methods. They wanted to understand how a species without advanced technology or special evolutionary advantages could produce warriors capable of such precision and skill. Lisa found herself appointed as the first director of the new Interstellar Military Academy, established to share human combat techniques with allied species. Students from across the galaxy came to learn not just marksmanship, but the human approach to problem-solving under pressure.